Hey, welcome to Single Mom Talks with Mary and Bree. We are talking about raising boys today. Raising boys as single moms. This is a really fun topic that we talk about a lot because we have 5 boys between the two of us. I have 3, she has 2. Mine have just moved into teenager and just under teenager stage and really little. And then Bree's are a little bit younger. So we talk about boys a lot.
Yeah.
Boy things a lot. And as being a single mom, like this really, so we're going to jump right into our pain points here. So one of the pain points that single moms tend to have is getting triggered by their son's boyish behaviors, like boys doing normal boy things. And women, we as women have a tendency to look at our son kind of being aggressive or whatever he's doing, and we identify that with our abuser, with somebody that abused us, or somebody that used a man that used their aggression in a not healthy way. And then we tend to bring that over to our boys. And then we tend to start to try to raise them more like girls, which is actually another kind of pain point that we have on here, but they just kind of flow together. So we get afraid of what we're seeing. And so then we try to raise our little boys like we would raise our little girls. And how does that backfire, Bree?
Like, oh my gosh. Like, then we end up with a society of men who don't know how to lead, who actually never learn to use their aggression in a powerful way, which is why our men need to know how to use their aggression in a powerful way so that we don't end up with these passive aggressive men who don't know how to lead their families. Yeah. And we just see a lot in our society of women who end up being more of that masculine energy and who are more bold and forefront. And when we need to be keeping that in mind, like as we're raising our boys, is learning how to channel that energy.
Yeah. Well, and taking responsibility for our healing, because often it's the wounded feminine, it's the toxic feminine.
Yeah.
That comes in and wounds the masculine and what is that word we use?
Demasculize?
Emasculates.
Emasculates
the masculine because we are afraid, because we have not been bold enough to take care of our own stuff. So we end up trying to control and trying to manipulate the masculine in order to help us feel safe. So our refusal to take care of our own stuff ends up causing us problems in the long run and ends up creating unhealthy masculinity in our boys because we were unhealthy, because we didn't take responsibility for our own traumas and triggers, or just sensitivity. Because, okay, we're going a little bit off the rails here, but run with me for a minute. A lot of times women tend to be more sensitive. And then we tend to think that because boys and men aren't as sensitive as we are, that must mean that they are insensitive, or it must mean that they're not aware, or that they don't care, or that they don't love us, or that they bulldoze, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I lost my train of thought. We had a big discussion about ADHD this morning.
Well, I think you brought up a really solid point there, though, where it's like when we are in our wounded state, we don't see them as little boys who just need training. Yes. We are so triggered that we just try to shut it down. We don't teach them how to redirect their aggression in a more powerful way. Yeah. So what are some ways that we can teach our boys to redirect that?
Yeah. So I am a big fan of sports for our boys. I'm also a big fan, teaching them to play instruments, teaching them to be in touch with that. But I feel like that's a little bit easier for moms to kind of go into. So I am a big fan of sports for boys. And I don't care if your boy is throwing a fit about it to begin with. If you don't have a boy that's kind of naturally into that, I feel it's so important to help them find a way to use their physical body to help them learn to channel that aggression. And especially if you're a single mom, if you happen to be a single mom where the dad is not involved or whatever, they need to be around healthy masculine men, because healthy masculine men are going to be the ones that they learn how to be a man from. They're going to learn certain things from us as moms, but they can't really learn to be a man from a woman. They need a man to teach them how to be a man. So getting them to those sports, and specifically combat sports like wrestling through the school district or taekwondo or something in that realm, or football, because it's a high contact sport, something where they learn that they can be confident in their ability to protect and lead a family. Because when you are strong within yourself, when boys feel confident within themselves and they have a high self-worth and a high accomplishment rate, like they're able to accomplish things and they have a purpose, they want to protect the people around them. And so you were just talking about that with one of your sons, how you kind of reframe things in a way to help get him on board with what you need him to do and help him to channel that. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah. So a lot of times, like in the past, I would be like, don't do that. Like, and I would get upset with him because he wasn't showing up how I expected or wanted him to show up. And I think in a way I really was trying to raise him as a girl, because I was in that energy of being so wounded within myself and my own experiences of men.
We get intimidated from our children.
Yeah, we really can, because it's something that like we're not biologically familiar with.
Right.
Yet a man can look at a child and be like, well, he just needs to go outside and run, or he just needs to go outside and,
Right.
But lately I've just been like trying to channel his attention in a way to help him feel like he has purpose and help him feel like, and I've noticed he's not as aggressive towards his siblings anymore. He's like, he serves me, like, and serves my other kids. Like, he'll make us all breakfast, or he will like take out the trash, and he's only 9.
And this is a son that is very naturally aggressive.
Yes.
That is very boyish in all the stereotypical boy ways, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that like just watching how much he has grown as I've started to channel his aggression in more positive ways and tried to, like, instead of trying to force him, because I think that's where a lot of masculinity gets staunched, is because women try to control, try to force them to do things. But instead I was like, hey, I tried to explain why I need them to show up a certain way and how it helps me and our family to feel protected, or it helps them have a purpose, so that they don't feel so, because a lot of times I heard him say over and over and over again, I don't belong in this family because I don't fit in. And I'm like, no, honey. And now that we're looking at his natural gifts and ability to be aggressive, to be the protector, like I was telling Mary earlier, like I'll have 2 siblings fighting. Like both of my girls often fight so much. And my son will just go in and attack him and just be like, I was protecting the one being attacked. Yeah. And I'm just like, hold on. Like, because it's their natural. And if my response is that of you're wrong and shame him, then after so long, he will no longer have that belief or ability to protect his family or his wife when he gets older, because in his mind, subconsciously, that's bad, because I'm constantly telling him, no, you can't do that. Instead, I'm like, okay, well, we can channel this in a different way. Like, I appreciate you wanting to protect and help out here. However, like, I believe the better way of doing this is being like, hey, mom.
Just addressing it in a different way that's a little bit less aggressive.
And just like there's nothing. And one thing I told him before, I was like, it's okay for you to just stand there and just be like, be that masculine presence of, hey, what's going on? And like just channeling it a different way than just throwing hands,
Yeah. And I think the big thing here is when our boys do come in and they like start throwing punches or whatever, is kind of doing what Bree's talking about here, where you come in and you identify, okay, like maybe coming in and punching your sister isn't like the best thing to do. Like, you know, like let's draw a boundary there. Let's be a strong boundary there, but do it in a way that affirms what he was trying to do, because he was trying to protect one of the sisters, right, from the other sister. So, and sometimes, you know, we need that anyway, but just teaching him like, hey, because you're that big, strong boy, you can come in and you can help protect that sister in a different way. And, so let's see on our.
Oh, that was something else that kind of leads into the next thing. If we are constantly shaming them, putting them down, telling them to stop doing that, stop being aggressive, they're going to find that way to be aggressive in other ways.
And it's usually going to be unhealthy.
Yeah. Like video games.
Yeah.
And like finding that purpose and that, oh, well, I'm getting this next level in this game. Guys, having your boys on video games and TV is literally killing the masculinity of this generation.
Yeah.
Like, that is my bold opinion. People can fight me on it, but we're no longer, like Barry was saying the other day, we're no longer having our boys dig trenches outside. They are doing it on their butts watching TV. Like,
with their thumbs.
Yeah. Like,
and they're using the excuse of, well, it's helping my hand-eye coordination. And I'm like, no. No. So many other ways that you can help your hand-eye coordination.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to dive into that piece and how, like, that's.
Yeah. So like video games, and again, we have a very specific opinion on video games here, and video games are a counterfeit copycat of real life. And they're a counterfeit to what boys and men are I went to the next thought, are designed to do. Men are designed to build and provide and conquer and destroy and expand the kingdom and all of these things that have built our world. That they're the reason why we have Western society today, is because men were willing to get on ships and go off, hopefully not the edge of the earth, and maybe never come back. You know, they are the reason why we have so much of what we have. And video games are a counterfeit of that. They give them the sense of accomplishment, all the noises, all of the awards, all of everything about a video game is designed to hit that reward receptor in your brain. And when boys get into that, they're like, look at what I'm building. Look at what I'm conquering. Look at the enemy that I am taking down. Look and camaraderie, because you'll find that they like to play the live games and they like to play with other people in other places. There's a camaraderie and a brotherhood there that video games provide. And it's a counterfeit though, because, and one of the ways that I framed this for my boys is, are you serving the world or your family or those other guys on there that you're playing in any way, shape, or form here, beyond just the, hey, we're having guy time together? Like, are you building or creating anything together? No, you're not. And I have heard arguments go, well, like, it's good bonding time, you know, in the moment and whatever. Like, you figure out what you need to do in your family and whatever, but be aware at the same time, whatever it is that you choose, that video games are a counterfeit for real life. They're a made up scenario of building and conquering and winning and getting rewards from that has no lasting effect on they're not building a business. They're not building a family. Yeah. They're not building.
Honestly, like, I'm going to be really bold to say this. I think that's why I have a very hard time even letting myself date men who play video games. Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing, you get a man who plays video games excessively, and then what happens when they're not getting that reward when they did something for their wife? In their mind, it doesn't light them up. So of course they're not going to do it anymore, because they're so addicted to that dopamine response of getting that reward in the video game, when like it just
well, and along those lines, I'm going to call out us women along those same veins. So men tend to use video games as an escape. women, we tend to use social media.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you know, we're not going to
Yeah.
call out one without calling out the other.
Yeah.
Women, you have to watch that too. So again, we're talking about raising boys here, and like that's kind of our topic, but I just felt like I needed to like throw that in there.
It's so true. And here's the other thing too with the whole, you know, with our raising our boys, we have to become respectable women, because there comes a point, like you were saying, our boys are going to get older. We're not gonna...
Mine are both my two older ones. My one is quite a bit bigger than me, and my other one, he, like, we were measuring that, he's like up to my hairline right now. So
right,
yeah.
and like there's a level of like they're bigger than you, and sometimes like it's not that you don't have control, but it's like
but they're changing from a boy to a man, so the level of control really is different. When your kids are little, you really do have a lot of control, and rightfully so, because you are training them. You're training them how to survive in the world. But the older they get, the less control you really do have, and it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
So the tactics of how you frame what needs done get to change according to the age of your child. And I think you can start kind of implementing some of those earlier on, like now that you kind of learn things. But yeah, they change as they get older.
Yeah. And I think that's why I was trying to like bring in the respect piece, like how you're talking about like women, like if we're scrolling social media and we're constantly comparing ourselves, like we can't like energetically come to our family with a piece of full respect. I mean, it's harder. I'm not saying we can't, but it tends to, I don't know, like it really does impact, I feel like, how we feel about ourselves and how our children will then feel about us.
And boys, this is a gift that I feel like, at least I feel like boys in general, men have this, and I can see it in my boys. They can see when we're wishy-washy.
Yes.
Like, and men have a gift to call us out on that. And we as women, we don't tend to like it, because we're like, no, we're not. But really,
we need to.
But really, like a big part of our conversation this morning has been on ADHD. And we're like, no, really, like the men in our lives really can see that a lot. My 14-year-old can see those tendencies that I have, and he likes to call them out. And again, I'm old school in the sense that I'm old school in a lot of my parenting, but I also will walk away and go, he was right.
Okay.
I'm working on when it's appropriate to like share that with him. And because I feel like that's important too. Because I grew up thinking my parents were perfect. Yeah. And then when I became an adult, I thought that you magically knew everything. Yeah. No, you don't. You don't. Like you still, you don't know.
Still know what you're doing.
Yeah, know nothing. And but men and boys really, they can see those things. So that's a way of identifying triggers. So when your boy is saying something, like one of my boys will point out where he feels like I'm being inconsistent in certain things. And I'll take it and I'll look at it and I'll be like, okay, he's right about this, this, and this. Here is where his childlike perception is, he feels like I'm being inconsistent, but really what it is I have matured as a mother, and I have changed my tactics over time. And they've changed from when he was little to now when some of his siblings are the age that he was then, that I'm doing things differently because I learned and I did things better. So I will take that and I'll go, okay, which part of what he's saying is feedback that I need to pay attention to, and I need to be humble enough to pay attention to, and which part of it is just the fact that he's a young child and he doesn't know, he's not privy to all the things that I'm doing over here, and he doesn't know my long-term game with a particular child and why I'm approaching a particular child the way I'm approaching them. He just doesn't know that because he's a child. Like he's not a dad yet, so he doesn't know those things. And I don't have to explain to him all of those things, but I have found that when it's appropriate, explaining to your boys why you're doing things, because so often they do just want to protect. They do just want to make sure that their siblings are growing up to be strong, like they feel like they were. So, you know, our oldest boys are both this way. When I feel it's appropriate and in the appropriate way, explaining to my boys why I'm parenting the way I am, why I approached the situation the way I did, that's teaching them and that's helping them understand the why behind what I'm doing, because all they're seeing is that maybe I'm not being as harsh on this kid as they feel like I need to be.
Yeah.
But when they can understand why I'm approaching them that way, then because sometimes I'm letting my other kid fail. I'm not automatically correcting the behavior because I'm waiting to see if they correct it on themselves, correct it themselves. And then if they don't correct it, then they have an opportunity to learn from that failure. Whereas he wants me to correct right now because that's what I did with him. And then as I got older, I was like, okay, but he also doesn't realize how many times I do the same thing to him because he's not observing himself.
Right.
He's just observing his siblings.
But you're letting him, that's the other thing I wanted to say too. You're letting him learn from his mistakes. You're like, I think that's another powerful point with raising boys is letting them within reason understand the consequences of what their choices bring to them. Because as men, like they do have a lot of big choices that are on their shoulders. Like they have to provide for their families. They have to learn those types of things. And if we're constantly trying to save them, they're going to expect a spouse that is going to come in and save them.
Yeah.
And then you end up with another passive men.
Yeah.
Who.
And you guys, we're raising men that are one day going to be protectors and providers in a myriad of different ways. So if you've ever seen the movie U571, it's an older movie with Matthew McConaughey in it, and he is the XO on a submarine. So he's the second in command on a submarine. And the beginning starts out with him finding out that he got denied his application to be the CO, the captain of his own submarine. And at one point he approaches his captain about it, and he's asking him why. And his captain goes, listen, right now these men look, so this is him learning to be a leader. He goes, right now, all of these men up here look up to you like a brother. He was like, would you be able to, in a moment of, you have a split-second decision you have to make, would you be willing to put their lives on the line and be willing to realize that you may be sending somebody to their death? Oh. These boys are all like your younger brothers. And there comes a point in the movie where he does have to make a decision like that. He has to choose between two boys to go and do this dangerous job. Spoiler alert, the boy doesn't come back. He doesn't survive the task that he's assigned. Oh. And you guys, we are raising boys who will become men that have to make life or death situations. Whether they end up in the military or not, they are making big decisions that impact their families. And this can go for you women too, who are leading your families as single moms, or whoever happens to be listening to this. But again, because we're specifically talking about boys, we want them to be able to trust themselves. We want them to have that confidence in themselves in a real world scenario. If they have to make a choice because we've seen so many of these video clips online of people on airplanes that are getting up and threatening the people on the airplanes. Or, we live in a day and age where crazy things are happening. We want our boys to grow into men who can make tough decisions to be able to save lives, to make tough decisions to help get their families where they need to be. And it just starts in these little things that we're doing with our younger boys, and so one of the other points that we had brought up here is that we as women, we need to be strong in our own boundaries, and we need to be confident in ourselves. Yeah. Because respect is big for boys. And again, that's why my oldest son constantly calls me out on certain things, like where he feels like I'm being wishy-washy or inconsistent. And I already covered stuff about that. But it's calling us up to be greater than we are. Like they in that healthy masculinity are calling us up to be greater too. Yeah. So you need to be strong in your boundaries, and they will respect you for that. And you can teach them along the way. Yeah. In all of that.
Yeah. So that was powerful. That was really good. I like listening to all of that. I can't help but like hear this cry for moms to be bold in letting their boys be boys and stop trying to raise them as women, because we live in a society where it is all about the feminist movement. I'm sorry, but I'm anti-feminist.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Nope. A man and a woman are meant to lead together as a couple, and
both in their powerful,
yes, in their
strength.
own gifts. And if we are constantly trying to emasculate men, like, we end up with
lose.
a nation that is without a true leader. We end up with families who are broken, and like, it doesn't work. Like, God created men and women to be a certain way, and we've got to look at these gifts and learn how to. And here's the other thing. There's often times where I am just literally like, Heavenly Father, I don't know what to do in this situation. And in that split moment when I'm trying to respond instead of react to my boy's aggression, yes. I'm like, how do I respond to this? And sometimes I am literally called to just sit and hold my son before I even try to like, and I'm just like, before I try to like calm everything down, I'm just like, honey, I'm here for you. And that's my role as a healthy, I mean, I'm not always healthy, but like as striving to be a healthy feminine role in his life is to be that solid emotional support. Because here's the other thing that I want to bring into play too. We have to raise men who are emotionally intelligent. And if we raise men who bulldoze over emotions and don't take into consideration that, we end up with men who are toxic masculinity. And that's just as scary. And so that's another thing that I just want to say is, don't be afraid to get on your knees or just have a split second of, Heavenly Father, how do I respond to the situation? Because sometimes it is very bold and direct where I'm like, that's not okay.
Yep.
And in our home, this is the standard I expect. Yep. I'll also always make sure that I'm pointing out the good that they are doing, because I've noticed over time, my son used to say things like, I don't belong, like, I'm just a bad boy. And I'm like, honey, no, we just need to learn to channel it. You just have a natural gift, and who am I to say that this is wrong? Because we just need to channel it in a more effective way.
Yeah. But so just as a recap, get your boys out and moving. Get them doing sports, find ways that you can help them have that was the last little thing, is help them find a purpose.
Yes.
Ryan Mickler on his podcast, Order of Man, I totally recommend it. It's a really good resource for women, not just men. It's for men, but he names off several things that all men need. And I can't remember what the other ones are, but one of them is purpose. And when boys have a purpose, that is a natural director for them. So they know how to channel those big emotions and those big things. So get your boys out moving, help them to find a purpose, help them to feel like they have a purpose and a role at home, that their divine masculine gifts are strengths, and they are gifts, and get them out and get them physical and help them find a way, whether it's just lifting weights or whatever it is, but help them get comfortable in their physical bodies, and so that they know what to do there.
Yeah.
You've got something for us.
I do. Yes. I was just thinking of this Jordan Peterson quote, and I think it is powerful to end this. A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very, very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control. And if we are constantly trying to minimize our boys, they become a harmless man. They become a man that stands for nothing, a man who isn't bold, a man who isn't leading.
And that's a dangerous man.
That's a dangerous
because
man.
It's weak men that hurt. And it's weak women that hurt.
Yes.
Again, we're talking about boys, but it's weak men that hurt their families and society at large. It is not strong men that hurt societies. Yep. So, thank you for being here today. We would love it if you'd hit that subscribe button, if you'd give us a like, if you would leave us a comment, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you might want to hear about in the future. We would love to hear from you.
Yep. Have a good one.